The following is brought to you by goldseekmint.com. Silver and gold bullion directly from the mint. goldseekmint.com.
Welcome to Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette here at the Sprott Symposium, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Doug Casey, chairman of Casey Research and best-selling author of several books, Crisis Investing, and you have a recent book out as well, which is called Totally Incorrect. Welcome, Doug. It's great to have you on the show today.
My pleasure, Vanessa. Thank you.
Now, Doug, you recently produced a show called Meltdown America, which was a huge success, and you were portraying companies around the world that had recently experienced massive, crises or meltdowns. And I guess ultimately the point you were making is that this could happen in America, North America as well, if some things don't change. So what are those things, and are you optimistic that some of those things might be correctable?
Well, as shocking as it is, it could happen in the United States because it happens almost everywhere, and when it does happen, it takes most people completely by surprise. What's going on is the American dollar is being destroyed before our very eyes. The U.S. government is critically over-indebted. The average American citizen is critically over-indebted. The standard of living of the average American has been dropping, actually, for 40 years now, but the decline is accelerating. So I'm not saying that it's going to be as bad as the 4 countries that we monitor in the video, but anything is possible.
I read just this morning, actually, that I think U.S. households were in about 40% in debt over that's how much they spend on an annual basis, 40% more than they make. So I guess, is that part of the problem?
The average American, and by that I mean about 40% of the population, can't live for more than a week without a paycheck. They're on the ragged edge. Half of the population, 50%, are net recipients of government aid. In other words, they're living off the rest of society, and they're in debt besides. So I think we're teetering on the edge. The way I put it is this, is that in 2007, we entered a gigantic financial hurricane. And we went through the leading edge of that hurricane in 2008 and 2009. Now we're in the eye of the storm. It's a gigantic storm. And I think very soon, maybe by the end of this year, next year I think for sure, we're going to go out the trailing edge. It's going to be much worse, much longer lasting, and much different than what we had in 2008 and 2009, which you'll recall was very unpleasant for a lot of people.
So what needs to change, in your opinion?
Well, you can't change human nature. That's rather a constant. But the problem is that the state, as an institution, the government, has corrupted the American people. And I don't even say America anymore, because America was a wonderful concept, a fantastic and unique concept, lovable concept. But America has vanished. It's gone. And I now call that geographic area just the United States. It's really just another of 225 nation states that cover the face of the globe like a skin disease. And that is the problem. It's the government, which it's the institution itself. It doesn't make any difference if it's Republicans or Democrats or anybody in office. It's the institution itself and what it represents.
So do you think it's too late? I mean, can anything be done to rectify the situation and get this, the dream of America back?
That's very questionable. In my view, the gradual degradation of the country from a moral point of view, a political point of view, it started 100 years ago with the Spanish-American War. And it was like a tiny little snowball at the top of the valley, rolling downhill and gaining size and speed. But now it's turned into an avalanche. And once a snowball or an avalanche gets big enough, you can't stop it. So I'm afraid it's going to hit the village at the bottom of the valley and wipe it out. Anything could happen, but I don't think we can turn it around at this point.
Do you have any hope at all for after this all comes to play out?
Well, yeah, because the real wealth, or most of the real wealth in the world, which is to say the farms and the factories and the technologies and the knowledge people have and this type of thing, that all is still going to be here if we have a financial and economic collapse. It's just going to change ownership. And that might be a good thing at this point because, sad to say, the rich have been getting richer for some time, and the reason for that is that they're standing very close to the fire hose of money being spewed forth by the Federal Reserve, and they can hire the lawyers and the accountants and the investment advisors to profit from this that the middle class guy can't. So there will be a change in ownership, and I hope it gets better, but it's going to be ugly as we go through the meat grinder and that all happens. And there's no guarantee that after the present system winds down or collapses, I hate to say such inflammatory things, there's no guarantee it'll get better, because in France in 1789, it was wonderful that they got rid of Louis XVI. But then they got Robespierre, and it got worse. And then they got Napoleon, and it got worse. And the same thing happened in Russia in 1917. It was wonderful that they got rid of the Tsar. Then they got Lenin, and then they got Stalin. So it's hard to predict.
And you just see that the country's on the edge of the precipice. What are you advising people to do? I think you've talked about diversifying assets internationally as being one of the most prudent things for people to do.
The financial risks confronting the average person today are huge. But as dangerous as that is, the political dangers are much more important. So just as you want to diversify between various classes of financial assets, it's much more important that you diversify politically so that all your assets aren't under the control of one group of politicians, because they treat citizens as milk cows now, sources of money for whatever they want to do. But if things get bad, as they did in these countries that we put our finger on and interviewed people from, they'll treat you as a beef cow.
Now, you've seen an increasing balkanization of viewpoints in the U.S. What do you see happening there? What kind of trends?
Well, one thing that is most unfortunate is that the average American has become increasingly politicized. In other words, he's not thinking economically. He's not thinking so much about what I can do to produce more wealth and save the difference and become. He's thinking about what he can do politically. Get this guy in office so he'll do things that'll help me. It's taking responsibility away from the average person. So this is another cause for pessimism. I'd like to see the emphasis on politics minimized instead of growing the way it is now.
And moving over to crisis investing, you had a bestseller in 1979 was called Crisis Investing. You must be seeing a lot of opportunities out there for that. What's the landscape looking like right now?
Well, everybody is going to have to become a speculator in the future, whether they like it or not. A speculator is one who capitalizes on politically caused distortions in the marketplace, and there are more and more of these. Now, this is bad news for the average person because he's got to spend time trying to safeguard what he has by chasing after bubbles. But on the other hand, if you're clever, you can profit from this. Because remember, most of the real wealth in the world is going to still be here. It's just going to change hands. So I'd say that there are some excellent speculations that are available, even as we speak.
Are there any particular areas globally that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'd say that if I was going to put my finger on one thing that is a near certainty for the next 10 years, I would be short Japanese bonds denominated in yen. They're a triple threat to the capital of anybody that owns them, so you want to be short them. In other words, sell them without owning them. Japanese interest rates, which are close to zero, are going to go up. the Japanese yen. They're creating more of them than the US government's creating dollars, so the yen's going to be destroyed. And the country is so over indebted, even more than the US at this point, that you've got a default risk. So I'd say that would be an excellent speculation for the next 10 years. There are many more, but I mean, where can we start? We don't have enough time to talk about them all. Speaking
of being at this kind of conference, there's a lot of gold stocks here. Are you looking around for your next investment?
I am. There are in Vancouver on the TSX.V about 1,500 supposed gold stocks. Most of them don't have any gold except on their name on their stock certificate, so most of them aren't worth owning. But as we speak, the mining stocks are at a very deep cyclical low. So this is the time to buy them. You can buy quality companies for less than the cash that they have in the bank, and if they're quality companies, they've got good properties, they've got good management. So this is a time where if you buy these companies, I suspect you'll get 10 to 1 on your money over the next cycle, and if you get lucky, you might get 100 to 1. It's happened many times in the past. And the lower they are, the cheaper they are, the less people want to hear about them, the lower your risk is, as well as the higher your upside potential.
Well, very exciting advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Doug. It was great having you.
Thanks, Vanessa.